Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're going to completely flip the script on something you have probably felt guilty about your entire life. We're going to decode exactly why your habit of losing interest quickly is actually a sign of a highly active, complex mind, rather than some sort of character flaw. I mean, for years you've probably internalized this idea that you just lack discipline or willpower, right? But today we're diving deep into the actual psychology behind this intellectual velocity. We are going to unpack the mechanics of how your brain processes the world and why your relentless need for novelty is actually a massive cognitive advantage. So let's get right into it.
So let me ask you this. Do you ever find yourself rapidly losing interest in a new hobby, a job, or even just a casual conversation way faster than everyone else around you? Picture it. You discover this awesome new interest. You dive in completely headfirst. Maybe you even go out and buy all the top-tier gear, and you literally spend days obsessing over every single detail. But then, almost as quickly as it started, the fire just vanishes. A week later, all that expensive gear is just sitting in a closet, and you're left looking for the exit, kind of wondering why you can't just stick with something like a normal person.
And if that scenario hits a little too close to home, I bet you've been told you just have a short attention span, more times than you can even count. This is exactly where the social friction begins. Society kind of unfairly labels you as uncommitted, easily distracted, or just lacking focus. People, bosses, teachers, maybe even your own family members, might tell you that you simply can't stick to anything, which honestly just makes you feel broken or inadequate. They look at all your abandoned projects and immediately assume it's a lack of willpower. But the psychology we're looking at today tells a very different and honestly deeply empowering story.
Like I said, society loves to frame this as laziness or a lack of discipline. But the psychological reality is literally the exact opposite. Getting bored easily isn't a character flaw or a symptom of a weak work ethic at all. In reality, this sudden onset of boredom actually indicates a highly active brain operating on a much higher intellectual level. It's a symptom of a mind that operates on a faster, far more complex plane. Your brain isn't failing to pay attention, it's actually processing the information so efficiently that it finishes the job before anyone else even gets started. To really understand this psychological truth, we have to look at a key trait known as openness to experience. Research shows that people with higher IQs score significantly higher in this specific personality trait. It's deeply linked to intense curiosity, a super vivid imagination, and this relentless intellectual hunger. In real life, this looks like going down a 3-hour Wikipedia rabbit hole at midnight, questioning the fundamental mechanics of how the world works, and devouring completely random facts just for the sheer joy of understanding them. It completely validates your natural love for exploring new ideas and your absolutely insatiable appetite for knowledge. So because of this intense intellectual hunger, your brain physically requires constant, high-level stimulation, and there is a very specific physical mechanic behind this. Think of it like a journey. First, you encounter and learn a new task, which triggers an exciting rush of dopamine. You rapidly solve the puzzle of how it works. But the moment the topic or job stops teaching you something new, literally the second you've mapped it all out, your brain physically shuts off that dopamine reward. The excitement just flatlines. The result? Instant crushing boredom. It's not that you gave up, it's just that your biochemical reward system simply turned off.
And this intense hunger isn't just about craving novelty. It fundamentally changes how your brain physically processes the world around it at an accelerated velocity. It isn't just about wanting to learn new things. It's about the staggering speed at which you digest and assimilate them. Your cognitive engine is essentially revving at a much higher RPM than average. That means you consume experiences, information, and challenges at a rate that can be incredibly hard for others to keep up with.
A massive chunk of this cognitive speed comes down to pattern processing. Smart individuals naturally notice patterns in behavior, words, and logic that most people completely miss. Because you are actively observing and processing information so incredibly fast, you figure out the unspoken rules of a new environment, a new job, or a new social dynamic far faster than average. Imagine walking into a brand new office. While others might take months to figure out the social hierarchy, the preferred communication styles, and all the software systems, you have the whole shebang mapped out in your head by the end of week 1.
But once you understand that underlying pattern and figure out how the system works, the challenge vanishes. Your boredom in that moment isn't you being lazy or ungrateful for the opportunity. It is simply your brain's way of demanding the next intellectual hurdle. Your mind is essentially screaming, "I've mastered this. Give me the next complex problem to solve." You were driven by the climb, the learning curve, the friction of not knowing. And the second that friction is gone, your brain is absolutely ready to pack up and move to the next mountain. Now here's where the intense friction happens with the mundane external world. Intelligent people often struggle deeply with tasks that require endless repetition with zero new mental reward. While others might find a lot of comfort, safety, and peace in a predictable, repetitive routine, to a fast mind, endless repetition is absolutely agonizing. It is exactly like owning a high-performance sports car and being permanently stuck driving 10 miles per hour in bumper-to-bumper traffic. The engine desperately wants to run, but the environment simply won't allow it, leading to immense frustration.
This agony stems from a really interesting psychological concept known as hyperconnectivity. Highly intelligent brains don't just take things at face value. They naturally connect everything, seeing these invisible threads tying completely disparate ideas together, and they flat out refuse to accept surface-level answers. Your mind inherently seeks depth and will literally not rest until it sees the full, complex picture. You crave deep understanding in everything you do, constantly asking why and how, way after others have just accepted the simple explanation and moved on. Because you naturally seek out that deep, hyper-connected picture, you inevitably struggle to find people who match your level of curiosity. This perfectly explains the immense frustration you probably feel during shallow small talk. When others just want to chat about the weather or, mundane daily routines, your brain is utterly starved for substance. This intellectual mismatch leaves you feeling intensely bored, isolated, and honestly completely misunderstood, almost as if you're speaking a slightly different language than everyone else in the room. Ultimately, you expect inspiration, not irritation. You value your cognitive bandwidth, your limited daily mental energy, entirely too highly to just waste it on things that do not challenge you. You naturally expect your efforts to require complex thought and meaningful engagement. So when you are forced into mindless, unstimulating repetition, endless administrative tasks, or shallow conversations, you quickly become frustrated. Your brain is primed and ready to be inspired, and when it hits a wall of mundane irritation instead, it immediately wants to disengage.
So when the outside world stops providing the depth, the inspiration, or the complex patterns you need to solve, where does your brain naturally go? Well, you go inside. You turn inward because your internal environment is often preferred over the external one when you have this level of intellectual hunger. If the world around you is moving way too slowly or lacking complexity, you simply create that complexity within your own mind.
And studies totally back this up. They show that highly intelligent brains desperately crave space for ideas. While some people might derive all their energy and life force from a bustling room of small talk and constant socializing, a fast mind naturally recharges through solitude. And solitude isn't about being antisocial, right? It provides your brain with the vital runway it needs for deep, complex, uninterrupted thought. It's the quiet space where your hyper-connected mind can finally stretch out, organize its thoughts, and build intricate new ideas without all that external noise.
This explains exactly why you might catch yourself daydreaming or totally drifting off during endless corporate meetings or mundane daily tasks. It's simply because your own rich inner world, the fascinating ideas, the connections, the theories, and all those imaginary scenarios you're building in your head offers a far greater intellectual reward than whatever is currently happening in the external environment. Your brain is simply choosing the most stimulating option available, and quite often, that option is tucked away right inside your own imagination. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to take these core concepts and use them to drop the guilt entirely. Let's treat this as an empowering reminder of your own cognitive capacity. First, getting bored is not a character flaw. Second, your mind simply processes patterns faster than the average person. Third, you have a deep, ingrained intellectual hunger that demands to be fed. And finally, your complex brain just requires a higher standard of mental stimulation to feel alive. You aren't unfocused and you aren't uncommitted. You just have a fast mind that refuses to settle for less.
So, the next time you find yourself entirely bored out of your mind while everyone else in the room seems perfectly entertained, I want you to remember the psychology we unpacked today. Are you ready to stop feeling guilty and finally embrace your fast-paced mind? Go ahead and lean into your curiosity. Seek out the complex problems you crave and fully embrace your intellectual velocity. Hey, if you love exploring the hidden psychology behind human behavior and learning why people think and act the way they do, make sure to subscribe to see more explainers just like this one. Thanks for learning with us today.